Fifth and final question. I ask this question to every guest who's ever been on the show. If you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would it be?
Sometimes people ask me, if you could impose one thing on the world, what would it be? And I'd say everyone would have a passport and everyone would walk in someone else's shoes. And I think if they were to do that, there'd be like such a greater awakening in the world. So maybe everyone was forced to live someone else's life and to step in someone else's shoes. And the more different, the better.
That we would allow ourselves the privilege of listening to each other before we act. That we would do our best to understand there are many points of view, and that level of understanding and ultimately that knowledge would allow us to come together to fix things and not keep breaking things.
Oh, that everybody practiced and had access to some form of therapy.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to help that happen too.
Yes. Yeah, the access to resource I think is very crucial. But I think I would make that like immediate. Like starting today, sign on the dotted line. Yeah. Like I think we all deserve safe spaces. I don't think we have enough of them.
This sounds trite, but and I don't know how you'd make it a law, but I just say, if you love your neighbor.
Yeah, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would make the world a much better place. We wouldn't have to have so many people who have to go to war and come back with PTSD and have to deal with the repercussions of that. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Treat others as you would like to be treated.
Beautiful.
Lead with empathy. Don't be so hard on every single thing, every situation, everything, no matter what. Like you never, ever know what someone's truly going through. Even you can ask me what's wrong and I could tell you one thing and maybe deep down it's something else that I'm embarrassed to tell you about. Like, you just never know the struggle that someone's dealing with when they're by themselves. Mm-hmm. So just be a little more empathetic. I feel like COVID really, caused people to react fast. Just take a step back, hear people out. Just calm down. Calm down a little bit.
Yeah. It's so needed for ourselves and others. And it's amazing how many of us, we all know we need that world, but it's almost like the system and society and the way it works is set up to make us not be that.
Yeah.
Right? Like we all want that, we all say that, and then something happens in the press and then everyone jumps on it. And
mm-hmm. I have to say that to myself too.
Yeah.
Keep yourself in check,
Definitely.
I would require them to be generous.
Be kind and think before you speak.
A health law? Have any health laws?
That will help people as social diseases, right? As social relationship disorders bring about physical disorders too. But if you want something a little bit more on a micro level, I would say a law. You said a law to people should live by. I would say eat foods that love you back, and find out what they are. Be curious about what they are, because when you focus on that, the rest of the stuff kind of is put into perspective.
Yeah.
Biodiversity.
Could you expand so that we can contextualize it?
There's a known phenomenon of blue zones around the planet where people tend to live past 100 years. And so here we are on the #1 health podcast in the world. What makes people live longer than 100 years? And we tried to boil it down to nutrition, and we found that almost every one of them ate completely differently. And some of them ate only cooked food, only meat, only veggies, the whole thing, only raw. We saw it all. In the end, what we have found is that those that will live under 100 years live in a culture and communities that hold at their highest value the opportunity for new connection to biodiverse ideas and peoples. And this was taught to me by a couple out of Ikaria, Greece, a Grecian island that is an incredible blue zone there. And they came and prepared a traditional 5-course Greek meal for a group of us. And I gave this toast at the end that said, this is the microbiome being nourished and we'll live forever. We'll be like a blue zone because the nourishment is so deep. The nutrients are so rich. It was all from... So this beautiful thing, I was crying, everybody's crying because it's a beautiful toast. And then a guy from Ikaria stands up and says, "Doctor, that was very interesting, but you're completely wrong." And he said that the only reason we live past 100 years is not for what we eat, but it's because every night there's a chair set at our table hoping that somebody we don't know shows up and shares that meal with us. In Ikaria, we never ask each other, "What did you eat last night?" But we always ask, "Who did you eat with last night?" And that's what we're missing from society today. And so when we talk about biodiversity, it's certainly true at the soil level. If we don't start living for the soil beneath our feet and enriching that with every action we take, whether it be a political move, a social move, an industrial move, economic move, if it's not supporting the soil, we would destroy ourselves. In the same way, if we continue to listen in the echo chamber of our minds and those people we are married to, and we create these nuclear families and we listen to the same box every day, whether it be a TV or our own brain, we will diminish our biodiverse ideas and our biodiverse capacity for creativity, and therefore we will lose the opportunity to stay and play.
Dr. Zach Bush, thank you for such a fascinating and unique conversation, one that was full of refreshing insights and ideas.
To be kind. We're just so divided because of, it's like, I think it's deeper than that, but it's like this notion of like, even I read something the other day that was like, anger is just grief. We had to, it was just like innate in us to be kind to other people. Like, can you imagine what kind of world it would be? So much better.
Well said.
God.
You can take your time.
Law that everybody had to follow. Don't be a bully.
That's a good one.
Bullying is outlawed.
Yeah. Any type of bullying,
Yeah.
I think that's a good law.
Yeah.
Gosh, the first thing that came to my mind was you have to believe in yourself. Because I believe that
What a law.
I believe that self-doubt is the killer of every dream. And so many of us die with our dreams in the graveyard. We don't have dreams we have imagination. We don't manifest the imagination. We don't become the alchemists of our life and create something beautiful, our talent, our gift, our purpose, because of doubt. And if we believed in ourselves more, we would be ruthless in our actions on creating it, or at least going for it. So I'd say the law of believing in yourself and that there is no such thing as self-doubt. That's the first thing that came to mind, but I would also say like just loving and having more compassion, like the law of love and compassion, because that would end every war and every fight and political issues. Like just having that law of love would be amazing.
To be kind to others, accept people where they are and who they are. I think that the world would be a much more pleasant place than what it is right now.
Don't be hypocritical. If your whole thing is stay out of my life, okay? Stay out of my life on guns, stay out of my life on COVID. Just stay consistent. And that's the hardest thing because there's the shade of gray, right? I just want consistency without like the issue of money. The affirmative action issue is, it's sports and legacy people or family, kind of heritage that got into the school. Well, that's about money. Like, oh yeah, the sports make them money, and the people that went there and their kids, they give a lot of money. Like, okay, we all get it. Like, just stay consistent with when we decide to pass a law. Like, that it is then across the board and the money doesn't get into it and all those other things. That's the thing. I just look at these. I just look at these things. I'm like, the hypocrisy of and I'm hypocritical.
All of us.
Yeah, I am hypocritical. I understand it. I wish that we could figure out a law of that consistency, whatever we decide, so that it's like, okay, if really what you're saying here, and we take it out across all these other issues, here's what it would mean. And so that everybody gets, I don't know what that law would be.
No, the essence of the answer is great. I love the idea of being consistent and removing hypocrisy and the challenges
and money.
Yeah, and we all have it. Like we all like, we'll fight to death for this thing, and then, but actually you don't.
Please don't say all my apocryphal things that I have done on air, right? So
we all have. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, that's easy. I would make a law that would make food quality, and I can define what that is, the most important determinant of all of our food policies and all of our agriculture. The most nutrient-dense, whole, real food we should be promoting and subsidizing and growing.
I love that. That would be powerful. I mean, that'd be so useful.
Yeah.
Solve so many problems. I mean, you've talked about that in your previous book. I remember we discussed it, just how much could change at a systemic level.
Huge.
To transform the healthcare of the world.
Well, think about all the things we talked about, from the mental health issues to the physical health issues to the cost of society to the damage to the environment. It's all driven by the production of ultra-processed food and the dissemination of it and the eating of it, which is 60 to 70% of our calories.
Yeah.
That has got to stop. It's crushing us with the weight of that, the figurative and literal weight of that.
Absolutely.
Pressure. One law that everyone in the world had to follow. I think it would be required compassion and empathy training. When I think about all of the ills of society, all of our kind of social evils come from us not being able to care for each other. When you think of really mentally ill folks, that there is, I don't want to say that because some of it is biological, but I feel like there could be so much pain that's avoided. We could stop so much transfer of generational pain and suffering. We could prevent so much abuse if we could just give people empathy and compassion training. It would impact how we legislate, how we interact with one another, how we care for each other in society. I think we need that so badly right now in our families, in our schools, in our businesses, in our government bodies. We just need so much more empathy and compassion.
Practice what you preach.
That's a great law.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Practice, be a definition of what you preach. Right?
That's a great
it's easy. It's easy to have words. It's easy to say. It's harder to do.
Yeah.
I would love to see a world of more doers and sayers.
Everyone, Kevin Hart.
Holy crap. One of the things that I struggle with every day is, and it's just how life is, and it's been the way for thousands of years, that there is such a disparity between wealthy and the poor. And you still, when you drive around LA, there's still so many people living on the streets. You shouldn't be able to have billions, right? I think there should be a limit to how much you can have, because there's enough to go around to everyone. So somehow creating a law that creates more equality, and equal access for everyone. I don't know how that you would implement that law.
That's all good.
But geez, man, I've met kids that are starving.
Yeah, same.
And you think, oh God, how are we are so lucky, so many of us, and knowing that and not taking advantage of your everyday is so important.
It does.
What law would you change?
It does. No, I think that's beautiful. Now you flipped it on me. All right, yeah. I see what you did there. If I had to create a law in the world that everyone had to follow, this is at least my today answer, and maybe it would change as well, is and it's inspired by what we're talking about. I think I wish at school the law was that every child had to learn about emotional mastery, to understand how to understand other people's emotions and understand their emotions and take that into consideration when making decisions. And if every child was given that exposure to emotional mastery, then people would just have tools of how to deal with their own pain and someone else's pain, and how to deal with when your parents are going through pain, because I feel like pain is the issue. We have any pain today.
That's so good, man. I told you not to come up with something even greater.
No, but it's inspired by you.
You're so right.
It's inspired by you. It's going back to education.
That's why, when you go to school, you don't learn all they don't prepare you enough for what's to come.
Not at all.
And that's tapping into mental health, as you mentioned.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of where my purpose is, right? My purpose is that feeling of, when I lived as a monk, that's where I got exposed to emotional mastery. That was the goal of what monk training was about. And I was 21, 22 when I did that.
Wow.
That's still young.
Shows a lot about you, yeah.
Yeah, but it was kind of like a fascination that I had. I was just like, well, if I can't understand my mind, then how can you live life like that? So anyway, it comes from what you're saying, that the education that needs to happen at a younger level. So, Lewis, it has been such an honor and a pleasure talking to you today, my man.